Like, I'm literally almost all over the place with this video because I'm not even quite sure how to structure it. I don't know how much I can share or I'm going to share. I feel comfortable sharing. I don't know if I should share at all. It just feels like we're already seeing so many videos regarding COVID on the internet. But I think my thing was, if I can reach one more person, if I can sit down in front of this camera and I film our experience and I reach one more person, then I would have done my job. This is my family's experience with COVID-19. Okay, so I'm going to give you a little short background of, a lot of things that we had done. Before the virus even came into the country, we were already concerned about it coming to the country and how we would protect ourselves as a family, but most importantly, protecting my younger sister. My parents are senior citizens. My dad had just hit 60 and my mom is in her late 50s, and it was just like they too are at risk. My older sister and I are also at risk, but we were seeing numbers that people our age handled the virus much, much better than the older citizens and people with comorbidities. And so when we first had the case in the country and the numbers were piling up, we had to sit down as a family and discuss how we were going to do how we're going to live and how we're going to do things to try and make sure that we keep the virus outside of our home as much as we possibly could. I mean, it does not guarantee 100% protection, but it was just like, if we're ever going to get it, let it not be because of our negligence. So my younger sister and I moved out of my parents' house and we went to stay with my older sister because she was on lockdown. She was working from home. She wasn't going to work. So the entire year last year, we were at my sister's house and my parents were in our home because they were going to work. Both my parents are in the essential services industries, so they had to go to work. And we were so scared. Scared for them because they had higher risk and they have comorbidities. And also for my younger sister. Like, our biggest concern was for her. If you're new to my channel, I have a younger sister that is living with severe cerebral palsy and some complications, and some of those complications have to do with the respiratory system. So if she were to get exposed, in our minds, that would be like the worst case scenario. Like, that would be it. I had a better chance of survival. My older sister had a better chance of survival. Even my parents had a better chance of survival. But with her, we're just so afraid that it would just take her out. So we were doing everything we could. We were not seeing family. We were not seeing friends. We were locked up. Our gate was constantly locked. We were not going anywhere. If we had to go out, we'd go out to get groceries. We'd go out to see the doctor, the chemist, to get her medication and to buy essentials and toiletries. That was literally it. We were locked up. We lived in our own little bubble, and that was to protect her. And of course, some people would be offended. Sometimes we'd, see family, especially when we started going to level 3, adjusted level 3 lockdown, and we'd see family. We'd always have our masks on, and we'd always get comments like, we don't have COVID. COVID does not live here. COVID does not exist. You guys are over dramatic. You guys are overdoing this. And some people would be like, no, you're doing great. But you can actually see that behind that, it was like sarcasm. And it's just like, it didn't matter to us. People could laugh at us. People could ridicule us. But what was most important for us was to keep ourselves safe and to keep my little sister safe. Okay, so I've not seen my friends in over a year. Like, that's thinking about it, it just upsets me. But the thought of exposing my younger sister and my parents and even myself is more upsetting than not seeing my friends. I do talk to my friends. Anyway, fast forward to February, first week of February. My dad was on leave. And I think he was home for about 2 or 3 weeks, and then he went back to work. A couple of days coming back from work, he's exhausted. He's tired. His body feels tired, and he's experiencing body aches, right? And then we're like, no, it's probably because you had just gone back to work, so you're exposed. You're working hard. You're no longer chilling in your chair, reading, watching news, doing all of these things. And then he's like, that's probably it. But days keep going by, and then now he starts complaining of a sore throat. He starts complaining about more muscle aches, and he starts getting headaches. And, you know, we're just like, no, at this point, it's the flu, right? And then Monday, I think the 15th, my dad started showing symptoms around the 9th of February. Monday the 15th, he's like, I'm not going to work. I'm going to go see the doctor, because now we can see it's the flu. The day before, he had been asleep all day. So like, it's exhaustion. Dad works incredibly hard, and the flu. So it's definitely going to take him down, right? He goes see the doctor. The doctor's like, okay, I'm seeing what you're explaining to me, flu symptoms, a mild flu symptom. And the doctor's like, no, I'm going to get you on treatment, because COVID is like the furthest thing in our minds. We are locked up. The only time we leave the house is for my parents to go to work, my sister to go to work, groceries, and we take all precautions. We're taking our vitamins, we're drinking our tea, our vitamin C loaded teas, like we're doing literally everything we could. So obviously COVID is not even a thing. Like, we're not seeing people, we're not exposed. And the doctor gives him some cold and flu medication, and is like, I'm booking you off because I want to monitor you and monitor your progress, right? So Dad comes home. Dad starts taking his medication. One day he's doing great, he's getting better. The following day, it just started getting worse. So from the 15th, he went to the doctor. 16th, he was so much better. 17th and 18th, Dad was bad. So my mom on the 15th had gone to work, and she came back and she's like, I've got a sore throat. My body is painful. I'm like, I woke up with a sore throat. So when my dad went to the doctor on the 15th, my mom and I started showing symptoms as well. So we're like, oh, it's the flu. We probably got the bug from Dad. Dad and Mom go see the doctor on the 18th, because now he's just getting worse. He's complaining about chest pains. He's complaining about not being able to breathe, and feeling like there's just a heavy presence sitting on his chest, and many other, symptoms. And they go to the doctor, but when they get there, they explain to the receptionist, Uti, you know what, we're experiencing 1, 2, 3. Do we get inside or do we sit out in the car? And they were like, no, as long as you're wearing your mask and you sanitize your hands, you'll be fine. So they go in, they wait to see the doctor, they see the doctor. The doctor's like, what you're explaining to me now is COVID. I am officially diagnosing you with COVID, because clinically we're seeing symptoms and, the effects of COVID. So right immediately, the doctor puts my dad and my mom on a cocktail of treatment they use to treat COVID symptoms, because we know that COVID does not have a cure as yet. Dad comes home, the doctor's like, isolate. Already, I'm not feeling well. And I remember I was talking to one of my friends, Sihle, bless that girl. I was talking to her, and I'm just saying, we're not okay in the house now. We're not okay. Dad is getting worse with the flu. At the back of my head, I'm like, it could be COVID, but I'm just like, there's just no way. Like, there literally is just no way it could be COVID, because we're not exposed in any way, right? And so, Dad goes to the doctor. They come back. The doctor had given my mom also the cocktail of treatment. And the doctor was like, I'm also going to give him like a treatment that's going to allow him to rest, to sleep, because I don't want him to get anxious and anxiety, because that is one of the worst things that could happen to a COVID patient. Anxiety and getting scared. So now it's like, okay, we might be dealing with it. He did not get tested yet, but we know that clinically the doctor's now starting to treat the symptoms. The following day, my mom is worse. I'm getting worse. My younger sister is experiencing all the symptoms that I have. So now all 4 of us in the house are experiencing those symptoms. All 4 of us in the house are getting sick. But obviously my dad is worse, and he's sleeping a lot, because he started experiencing these symptoms like a week, 5 days earlier than we did. And so now we're monitoring ourselves. We're drinking a lot of teas. We do not have an appetite. We cannot smell anything. We cannot taste anything. we are exhausted. Literally, you get up, you do one thing, you wash, you make breakfast, you wash the dishes, you're tired. We're sanitizing the entire house every day. We are switching on, pots and kettles just to make sure that we try to sanitize. Our humidifiers is on. We're steaming every day, twice a day. We are exhausted. It was a nightmare. It literally was a nightmare. But the worst part was just, you know how when someone is sick, right, and you're not, you're able to take care of them and you're thinking, but now anxiety set in because one, we're all sick in the house. Two, the one person who is at most risk, one other person who is at most risk is just, he's just sleeping there, like he's just laying there, and it feels like he's not getting better. But we just, we convinced ourselves, because the doctor said I gave him medication to keep his anxiety down. I wanted him to sleep so he doesn't think. Now we're monitoring him. Is he still asleep? Is he still breathing? Is he eating? Dad, get up and eat. I am eating, I am chewing. I feel like I'm chewing rubber. I cannot taste anything. The thought of food made me want to cry because it was just so painful to eat, to think, to do anything. But I'm so grateful. I actually started taking the medication with my mom, right? Because I actually saw that I have the same symptoms and I'm getting worse. So I want to get on it before I even went to see the doctor. So I started sharing my mom's medication. And then a couple of days we went to the doctor because now it was my mom, it was my little sister, it was the ugogo that helps us with my little sister during the day normally. So she also started showing symptoms, and she came here the other day. She's like, she was disoriented, like she couldn't finish a sentence. She's like, I'm not eating, I'm not smelling anything. I am, I'm lightheaded. My chest is on fire, but it's not really on fire. It just feels like someone's sitting on there. I feel like I'm not getting in enough air, but I actually am getting enough air. And she's explaining all of these things. And I think when she came through to our house and she explained that to us, that's when we started getting scared, because now we're like, okay, not only are we sick, but we also exposed her unknowingly. So now my mom started getting anxiety because she's like, I cannot bear the thought that something would happen to her and it would be because of me and my family. And it's just like, there's just so much anxiety and there's just so much pain emotionally and mentally that you go through when you've got COVID. And I think a lot of it has to do with just what we've seen in the media and what the records are saying. Yes, there's a large number of people that, beat COVID and live, but there's also a large number of people that are dying from COVID. And now we're afraid. All of us are afraid because we all have it. And now you're worried about mom, you're worried about dad. I'm worried about my younger sister. My mom and I held it down in the house because we didn't want my older sister to come and get exposed. But my niece had already also started showing symptoms. And so now we're waking up at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, trying to make sure that they steam, that they nebulize, that they get, the chest area inside as wet as possible. At some point, I would wake up at like 3 in the morning to make tea just so they have something to drink, because they were now starting to cough, but it literally felt like there was a tractor in their chest. And my dad especially, my mom wasn't coughing as much, but my dad, and it just was getting worse. So when we went to the doctor, the other 5 people, like me, my mom, Nokoko, that helps us with my sister, the doctor was like, okay, so now you guys are also exposed, and he gave us treatment as well, the cocktail of treatment. I think that is usually given to people who are in the early stages, because they're trying to treat the symptoms so it doesn't get worse. So my biggest advice, like before I even go on with the story, if you are feeling any type of way, please go to your primary healthcare provider, be it a private doctor, a doctor in private practice, or go to your nearest clinic. Upon entrance, let them know that you're experiencing 1, 2, 3 and you'd like to test for COVID. Then they can test you and you can start taking your COVID treatment. And they start, I know that different facilities give different cocktails of treatment, and that will be based on your symptoms. Anyway, so we went to the doctor, we got our medication as well, and my mom was getting worse now. She was also bedridden now, and I'm the one cooking, I'm the one making sure my little sister eats and she takes her medication. I'm the one monitoring everyone now, and I'm also sick. Like, I'd get up, make food, make breakfast, make sure they're drinking their teas, their treatments, their vitamins, and then as soon as I'm done with everything and feeding my little sister, I sit down, I doze off. I'd wake up in panic, like, oh my gosh, have I been out for hours? What if I'm asleep here and they're getting worse there in the bedroom? And like, it was just a lot of things happening. Fast forward a couple of days later, we wake up one Tuesday morning. Is it Tuesday? We wake up one Tuesday morning or Wednesday, and I can't remember. And Dad is worse, right? Because when we went to see the doctor, he was like, no, I'm getting better. And we could see that he was getting better. But the issue now was he wasn't eating. And he also was just laying flat on the bed. We tried to get him up, but he's like, I can't get up. Like, I can't get up. I'm done. Like, my energy, like, I'm tired. I can't get up. So we're like, okay, we left him, went. The following day, Dad took a turn for the worse. The symptoms have now subsided, but now he's coughing up phlegm that is made with blood now. He's like laying low. His breathing started going down. At 9 a.m. in the morning, I'm like, Mom, I think we need to take him to the hospital. And Dad is like, no, I'm fine. I don't need the hospital. I'm just tired and I don't really have an appetite. Mom, Nai, on the side, she's like flat. Like, she's flat. She's like, I don't even have an energy. Like, I don't have energy. I don't know what I can do. I don't know what to do, because myself, I'm just done. So that morning, everything happened in a blur, right? But the only thing I could think of was, we need to get Dad to the hospital. We need to get Dad to the ER. Dad's like, I'm okay. And then it started getting worse. And now he started getting to a point where he can't speak and he can't get enough into his body. He's hyperventilating. He's breathing so hard. And I'm like, he needs to go to the hospital. And Mom is like, you need to go to the hospital. He's like, yeah, no, I need to go to the hospital now. So we call my sister and her partner, and they eventually got to the house about a little less than an hour, and they took Dad to the hospital. He was immediately admitted, because when they got there, I couldn't go, my mom couldn't go, because we'd be exposing other people. So my sister said that when they got there, the nurses, he was immediately taken away, and it was like, it wasn't a chaos, but it was like, we need to run now and treat this patient because it's bad. He wasn't breathing, you guys. And when he left the house was so quiet. It was eerie. You could hear every single sound. It was almost as if we walked into a ghosted house. That's how bad it was. And I was just, in my head, I was crying, but I can't cry because, I need to be strong for my mom, and I don't want to worry her, but she's also seeing that, and she's also wanting to cry, but I think she's also thinking, I don't want to cry and worry them, because then they think something bad is happening. But I think we all knew that it was really bad. When my dad left, he was in a really bad shape. He was in a really, really bad shape. Like, he wasn't breathing, because we even prayed before he left the house, and he hardly could utter words, But the one thing he did is he called on to God, and my mom and I were praying. My sister couldn't join us because we didn't want her to come into the house. And so we were praying. We prayed that God, walks with him, that he comes back home alive and safe and whatever. And we're just praying, and then he went. So now my sister's not coming back, and it's getting to, 7. They left around 2 p.m. and it's getting late, and she's not coming back. But we kept calling her. She's like, the doctors have not come back to see me. They just asked me to stay so they could give me an update. So now we're like, is there anything, an update? Give us an update. We're anxious now. Like, are they afraid to come back to tell her the worst case scenario? A lot of things go through your head, and while you're going through all of those things emotionally, you're also dealing with the virus yourself in your body. And we couldn't help but get more anxious. And that only meant we'd get worse because our bodies were now having a hard time. Every hour felt like it was 12 hours. My sister eventually came back home, and she's like, the doctor updated her and told her that they've stabilized him. She should go home, and they'll call her if anything, for anything, any reason. So she went to her house with her child, and we were just at home. It was so scary, and it was just so sad. It was a sad environment. I had to be the one locking the gates. I couldn't taste anything. I hated the thought of food, but I knew I had to eat because I knew I had to get better, and because I knew I had to have enough energy to take care of my mom, who was now getting worse. So now it was the next couple of days. The next couple of hours, we're praying that my dad gets through the night. You know how you always hear that if he can get through the night, then he'll be good. So now we're worried about that. I hope he gets through the night. I hope he gets through the night. I wake up the next morning. I had taken medication. So some of the medication, does drug your body, and you sleep. You sleep well. So your body rests. It sedates you. And so I wake up the next morning. There's a message from my sister. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to read it. And the message basically said that my dad was transferred from the hospital that he was initially taken to another hospital nearby, because that hospital did not have beds, empty beds in the ICU, and his physician wanted him to be in the ICU. So he was transferred, and he was immediately admitted into the ICU. And, right there in my head, I'm like, ICU, I mean, that's bad. He was in the ICU the couple of next days. We were praying every hour, it felt. Our bodies are fighting the virus, and we're also just trying to make sure that we take good care of ourselves and we keep our spirits up, and we're praying for him to come back home. And we're worried about my mom. She's also sick, and she seems to be getting worse, but she also has to worry about her husband and the father of her children. And now we don't even know what to do, and we're just like, the best we need to do is to make sure that we pray, one, and that we do everything we can ourselves to get better. I cannot tell you what had happened within the next week. Our days were such a blur. We prayed, we ate, we watched TV, even though I think the TV watched us. And we were trying as hard as we can to, not worry my younger sister as well. Because even though she's disabled, her comprehension is on another level. And I think 3 days into my dad being hospitalized, she started, being like, okay, what's happening? Where's dad? What's happening? And dad started calling us. And each time the phone rang, there was this feeling of dread, almost like you're gonna faint, because you don't know who's calling and what that person is gonna say, especially when it was numbers we didn't recognize, or a number, or my dad calling. It's like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. What do we do? But we prayed. I was bargaining with God, you guys. I was praying. I have never prayed so hard in my life. I have never prayed so hard in my life. My prayers were long. My prayers were short. Sometimes I go down on my knees. I'm like, what do I say? I have never prayed so hard in my life for my entire family. I have never prayed so hard. And I was bargaining with God. I was like, if you do this for us, God, I'm going to give this up. If you do this for us, God, I'm going to do this. If you do this for us, God. It was like I was literally begging God with my life. that my dad comes back home, and that my mom heals, and that my younger sister heals, and that I heal, and that we get better. And eventually there was a call that came through, and my dad was like, I am okay. I'm getting better. Days are not the same. Hours are not the same in a day. 1 minute I'm doing great, the next I'm doing worse. But the doctor said that had we not taken him to the hospital the time that we did, I'm sorry, you guys. My dad would not be here with us today. So yes, he survived. A few days later, Dad called that he was out of the ICU and he was doing great. That COVID had complicated to pneumonia. And it had taken about 3 days for them to actually find COVID, because it had advanced so much and it was getting to a point where they couldn't find it. Because he had experienced symptoms from the 9th, and he went to the hospital around the 23rd, 4th. And so they eventually found it, and they started treating the complications, and we also started getting better. But let me tell you, it's a long road with COVID. Even after the 14 days of the acute phase, and we no longer had an active virus in our bodies, but there are a lot of things that COVID affects. It affects you emotionally, mentally, physically, right? There are some lingering complications from the virus that I am personally experiencing. And I was a girl that my health is top 2 and not number 2, but I'm experiencing those complications: body aches, a sore throat, lingering sore throat, headaches. Of course, it's going to be worse for my parents because they're older. So even though we no longer actively have COVID, my dad is still required to quarantine because he was in the hospital, and he is not literally like out of the woods. My mom went back to work today. My younger sister is doing great. The one person we were all worried about beat COVID like it was nothing. Like, she experienced my symptoms, my mom's symptoms, but it wasn't as severe, and we're all sitting here like wondering how that is possible, how that happened. But again, it is God, no one else, nothing else. It is God. She's doing great. She's eating. She was the only person that actually ate normally when we all had COVID. And we eventually did get tested. We got tested, I think, when my dad went to the hospital, and they found that he was positive, and we got tested. But because it had been somewhat a bit later on, my younger sister and Ukokolo Ncetangaye tested negative, even though they had symptoms. So I think they had already gone out of their acute phase. And I tested positive, my mom tested positive, my older sister tested negative, and she was the one person that also did not show any symptoms. I'm thinking with her, she was either asymptomatic when she had it, and then when she tested negative. Because I say this because she is also experiencing post-COVID symptoms. Now, like things that I complain about, things, your brain gets in a fog. Like you're listening to what someone is saying to you, but you're not hearing them. And I don't know if that had to do with the anxiety, but it was a bad time. It was a bad time. So my biggest advice for you is, one, if you start feeling any type of symptoms, please rush to your primary healthcare provider, be it the clinic or a doctor in private practice. Let them know how you're feeling. Even when you feel like you are not exposed, just raise up the issue that it might be COVID, so they can get you tested and they can get you on the right set of cocktail treatments that you can get that may be good for you and your body. And if you have any comorbidities, they can just make sure that also that is taken care of. 2, it is not easy to not get anxious. But I did realize that when we started getting anxious, that's when we got worse. And that is like the worst thing you could ever do. So isolate, as they say, try to keep as many people safe as possible. And the third one is, if you are living in a house with someone that tests positive and is experiencing symptoms, listen to them, but not like overly. Make sure you do everything you can. Do research, do things like your vitamins, their medication, food, cook soups, make soup, light food, heavy foods, but things that they can easily digest, so they have something in their stomachs, so their bodies are geared up and they're fired up to fight the virus. And also keep a close eye on them. If you feel in your heart and you're seeing in your gut that this person is not doing well or is not getting better, despite what they're saying, because they're going to tell you they're doing well, they're going to tell you they're getting better, they're just tired, or there's just this. But if you are seeing them and you are feeling in your gut that this person is not okay, take them to the hospital. You don't want to take them to the hospital much earlier, because then you may get turned away. But you will want to go to the doctor, and if the doctor also agrees with you, then the doctor will take them. But if the doctor's like, no, it's still early, listen to the doctor too. Do everything you can at home, take your medication. But if it's not getting any better, call your doctor so they give you a referral letter so you can go to the hospital. My dad is alive today because we did not listen to him on that day. We actually were like, you need to go now. It was only when he was like getting super worse that he was like, yeah, no, I'm gonna go. Because when he came back and we started talking, and it's unbelievable that we're all sitting here at home. We're all at home and we're all just, it's a miracle. It's a miracle, because he also just says that I don't know how I'm here today. I don't know how I've survived this. I don't know how I'm alive. Like, he's like, a lot of things he doesn't even remember. A lot of things are blacked out of his brain. And it's just like, that's how serious COVID is. And the people that were laughing at us for locking ourselves in and wearing masks literally everywhere, even around family, now it's like, it just sucks that sometimes we have to go through, or we have to know someone that went through something for us to believe that it actually exists. But it was a nightmare. I will not lie. It was the worst time of our lives, and I'm super grateful to God that we're sitting here. I don't want to talk a lot, but I'm very, very grateful. Very, very grateful.